morning, everyone. Heading down to New England Muscle Cars today to work on the F100. But first, we're gonna go to Dunkin' Donuts because I'm from New England. So if you couldn't tell from my beautiful accent, I'm from New England. I'm about 20 minutes south of Boston, and today we're heading to Lakeville to New England Muscle Cars to work on the 69 F100. So this truck has a Coyote 5.0 and 6R80 from a 15 Mustang. It's got a bunch of stuff on it from American Auto Wire, Fat Fender Garage, VaporWorx, and Power by the Hour. And today we're going in and we're going to wire up this whole drivetrain and hopefully get it running. So that's the plan for today. I'm going to take you guys along for a little ride. Alright, so before we get started on that F100, we've got this F100's frame that's back from powder coat and ready to go. So this one's a two-wheel drive. It's got a whole QA1 front suspension setup, rack and pinion, coilovers, 4-link in the rear, fuel cell already, 9-inch. So this one is also getting a Coyote motor. I do not know which transmission this one is getting though. But this is going to be a fun little truck as well. And on to the giant pumpkin. So they got the door handles, door latches and everything, mirrors, all that stuff is in. I got to make sense of all this, which I have most of it already. So we got the column in as well. Everything I have that's taped off here so far, those are wires that are not getting used. Why are they not getting used? Everything on that side all goes to the factory HVAC stuff. This truck is getting a vintage air kit. Everything on the vintage air is basically standalone, so we don't need the blower resistor. What else is we got? The blower motor connector, some other actuator door things. Oh, we got the pedal mounted in here too. That came out nice. So I got to run the wire for that, or the wires. And this, I forget, what is this one? This would be, oh, so this is for the dual fuel tank option that this truck came with. The American Auto Wire harness gives you pretty much everything that the truck could have, and then you just kind of pick and choose what you want. And that we don't need because there's also a fuel cell in this one. Inner fender wells are on now. And yeah, so this spaghetti, this is job one. I got to make sense of all this, and then we can hook up the PCM. I got to put the battery over there, and I can start making battery cables, and we will be good to go. Alright, so we're somewhat straightened out now. This whole harness right here, these are all my rear lights. These have to get run down and out and through, and the only thing that needs to be added to this harness is the fuel level sender wires, which are going to be separate because this is getting a Dakota digital dash. Now, we've got this harness. This is all your front lighting for the driver's side. The way these Fords are, you split the driver's and the passenger side lighting up on each side instead of running it straight across the center like most GMs do. So we have speedometer, which is not going to be getting used because we have Dakota digital. And then everything is pretty much labeled on this American Auto Wire. It's very nice the way they do this. The only thing that wasn't labeled here was this green wire, which turned out to be the horn. And then we've got a bunch of main battery powers and stuff like that. So these would be, if you're running the original stuff, you have an ignition feed for your coil, you have your coil negative, and you have your sensors. Now I might still take these sensors out of this harness and run them down there. I've got to look on this motor where the sensors are. What do we got? We got coolant and water, basically. That's all we're going to need. And we've got some main power plug-ins here for this side that go to the fuses, and then more lighting on this side. So got to start making sense of it. Now we have your PCM, your whole power by the hour harness. They make this pretty easy. They give you a fuse block with it, and then you have a main battery ground, you have fan power, you have fuel pump power. And then you have somewhere else in this harness, I gotta find it real quick. There is, yeah, you got a ground right there, and there is a main power and ground to the PCM itself. So we're gonna start doing some routing and wiring and terminations. This is the American Auto Wire kit. I kind of like these a lot. They're good for somebody whose brain works like mine, which is very OCD and very schematic based. They basically, it's a lean schematic, give you all your connector ends with colors, no less. They give you your breakout points. This is your entire dash harness. This goes across the dashboard right now, right out of your fuse block. So this is how I figured out how to do all that layout and where I was putting everything. Give you all your locations for all that, and then they break it off into smaller branches, which they give you the specific branches what they go to, which is pretty good. And eventually you work all your way to the end. Hold on one second here. And you start getting your sensors and your wiring, your lighting. So right now we're going to work on hooking the battery stuff up. So I'm going to start making some crimps on some heavy gauge wire and start running my main battery connections. So as you can imagine, in a shop full of American muscle cars, the one thing that held me up the longest so far this morning was trying to find a metric nut to fit on the alternator stud. Alright, now we continue. Alright, so we got an alternator wire. This was the easy one, because the alternator is just right over there. So we need to hook a main battery up to my front side. This one goes to the main wire that comes off of the fuse block inside, and I'm also going to hook the other fuse block that is part of the power by the hour system up into that one. here's where we are. Got the PCM mounted, got the fuse block mounted, got the battery mocked up. This isn't the battery that's going in. The battery tray is not here yet either, but that's why all the wiring looks slightly a mess right now, because it is slightly a mess, because I can't really finish length everything until I get that stuff in. But good news is it cranked. So the power by the hour wiring harness gives you your key and your 12-volt feed lines inside the cab, which is good. So that way I can hook those right into the ignition switch if I was using an ignition switch. We have, I'll just walk you around here. We have a push button start going into this because we're being all fancy and stuff. There's parts on top of parts on top of parts. So this came from, I believe, Fat Fender Garage, and it's a nice push button start kit. Pretty basic wiring. Nice push button. I already had that in there. The push button actually fits into the stock hole for the ignition, right in there, which it's not supposed to. That wasn't how they made it, but just by luck it fits. All right, I gotta tell you, this the sound deadening and the ramp that this truck floor has, it's like a water slide sliding right out every time. So we're not using the ignition switch, which would be this connector right here. You've got your 12-volt battery feed, your accessory ignition, and your start crank. These are also your wires that go into your neutral safety switch, which on these older vehicles is mounted down here on the column, on these column shift ones. I've already had, get that music down a little, I've already had that hooked up and in here off of my wiring for the American Auto wire. What I've realized is I've got, I think, 4 different systems now powering this engine, which is not a problem. It's just time consuming. It's food for my OCD brain, so that's good. And we have the power by the hour harness, which is a standalone harness for the engine and transmission control. Then we have the Dakota Digital dash that's going in, which has its own signal conversion box. Dakota Digital also sent us a conversion box so that the transmission indicator, shift indicator, will work with this 6-speed transmission. Then we have the self-contained module that's going into the vintage air system. And then we have the module for this push-button start. So I've got to make all these systems work together. And it's not too difficult, it's just a lot to keep track of. And I'm mainly a mental list maker. I tend not to make paper lists just because I'm an idiot like that. But that's where we're at. So with this kit, with the push button, you take your 12-volt feed directly into the module they give you. Then, where is the power by the hour? So you have your key, which is your ignition on. Then you have your start. So your start goes to the starter wire. But here's the problem. If we just put it into there like that, we no longer have a neutral safety option. So the truck can start in gear. So what I have to do is bypass that up into the 2 pins under here that are for the neutral safety switch and go through that through the push button start, which that will happen once we get a little bit more of the interior in, so I can figure out where we're mounting all these modules, because that's a ton of modules for this old truck that doesn't have any space for any modules like that. But it's coming right along. Everything is looking very nice. Dome light's gonna go in. Where's the bed? Bed is over here getting its final polish. That fender got polished today. That hood is getting sanded and polished this week. Then I can start finishing up cleaning all this wiring up. And once the battery's in there fully where it's supposed to be, I can clean up that mess of wires that come off of the Power by Hour PCM kit and make that nice and neat. And most of that's going to be hidden under the 5.0 cover that these Coyotes come with. The fans will be powered off of the stock PCM. They give you a pinout for that, so I just have to run a relay for that. And then, so we have, that's all wiring for lights. Same thing on that side, I've just got it tucked behind everything. And we're getting there. So, like I said, I had it cranked over today. It started today. It's not going to run because I don't have my map sensor input into the pulse width modulated fuel pump yet, fuel pump module. And I also don't have a air intake tube, so there's no way to plug the mass airflow into yet. But we're getting there.